My name is Darren Hupke, and this is Pixels and Polygons, part of the Soundstone Network. Welcome to a new episode of Pixels and Polygons. I am Darren Hupke, the host of the show. If you are a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back and checking out another episode. Hopefully this is another entertaining one for you, and I appreciate you for coming back week after week. If you are new, it's a simple pitch. I sit down with a guest each week and I ask them a video game related prompt or question, and we talk about it. It's 20 to 40 minutes or so each episode. This can stem from topics like what's a underappreciated or below average game you love that doesn't get enough attention, or what is your history with video games? When did you start playing and when did you fall in love with them? Or why do you play the games that you play? It could be a lot of different things. The conversations can go in a lot of different directions, but the point is just to have a great and thoughtful conversation that maybe sparks your own ideas or your own interests as a listener to think about your own responses and hopefully just have some fun along the way. If you like what you hear and you want to support the show, I've got a few different ways you can do that. I have links in the show notes below to everything that I do, and I'll highlight one of those in particular. 32-Bit Library is a retro gaming book series for nostalgic gamers. Each volume is a curated retrospective of games from the original PlayStation library. Every game has a written entry discussing its development and what made it special, rather than a generic review. Multiple screenshots from each game highlight key moments and refresh readers on these classic titles, and every title features a giant double-page screenshot for added visual flair. Additional essays by industry professionals provide context and history within each volume. Whether you are a die-hard PlayStation fan or want to explore the history of this generation for the first time, the goal is that you'll learn something new inside every volume. You can find links in the show notes below, or head over to pixelsandpolygons.net to buy your own physical copies, or over to patreon.com/Darren Hupke for the digital editions. With that out of the way, we can start the episode right after an ad from one of our Soundstone Network partners.
Hello, we are Kirby Conversations, a podcast on Kirby along with adjacent subjects like Smash Brothers, HAL Laboratory, and other related Nintendo games.
In each episode, we take an in-depth look at a new Kirby topic, drawing on our decades of experience with the series. I'm Sean Douglas. I'm a writer and podcaster with a background in video game and theater journalism.
And I'm Gigi, the editor-in-chief of Kirby and a big Kirby fan from Brazil. I translate Kirby interviews from Japanese to English and research a bunch of obscure Kirby media.
And I'm Bridget, a longtime fan, commentator, fan artist, and Kirby collector.
Join us for a mix of commentary and original reporting, deep dives into Kirby history, interviews with industry professionals, and more, as together we explore all things Kirby and HAL Laboratory. We're a proud part of the Soundstone Podcast Network, and you can find Kirby Conversations on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Okay, everyone. This is not normally how I start the show, but this is doing it live. Don't edit these out. Welcome to Pixels and Polygons, a conversational podcast about video games. I am Darren Hupke, and I can now say I'm back with returning guest. Oh my gosh, I have to mute Discord. I hope that didn't show up in the recording. Again, doing it live, not editing this out. This is all part of it. Returning guest to the show. This is your second episode and hopefully many more after that, honestly. But welcome back to the show. Kate, how are you?
I'm doing great, Darren. It feels like it was just yesterday that we were speaking. And I'm so thrilled to be here again. Thank you for having me back on the show.
I'm always curious to know, like, there's no requirement that you have to acknowledge that we just got done recording the other episode, but I'm always curious how people will handle like the fake time jump that is not actually real. Like we're recording this right after immediately the last episode, which if you listen to the last episode, it definitely was weeks ago in my podcast feed, but this one is recorded immediately afterwards. But thank you for participating and keeping the veil of the magic of the internet up. But no, that's not how it works, unfortunately. But yes, thank you for continuing to chat with me. I sent you the list of topics that I usually like to chat about, and this next one is fun. It's one of my newer questions, quote unquote newer questions. I kind of refreshed my topic list for what I consider this season 3 moment that I'm in. There's no reason as to why I have called things like a season or anything like that at all. It's just when I've decided to refresh some things and spice it up. That's what it is. But I'm looking forward to you answering this question. But before we get into that, you gave us a nice introduction of who you are and your background in the last episode. So if you have not heard that yet, please go back and listen to that first episode with Kate. But I would love to hear what are some games that because you've talked about being able to kind of challenge yourself to play some games that maybe you were not expecting or not maybe enjoying, but you've taken a challenge to try them out anyway because of your podcast and because of just curiosity. What are some of the biggest surprises you've recently kind of played? Games that maybe you didn't think you were going to be your cup of tea, but ended up being like really entertaining or exciting for you?
This is such a great question. So yeah, and I am really not a combat girly. I don't get excited at the prospect of combat, especially if we're in like a realistic graphics sort of situation, especially if it's like first person or a 3D. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. Like I'm still pretty new at games, so I think that I feel overwhelmed a lot in these kinds of situations. But we did cover a game on our show called On Guard. I don't know if you've heard of it or played it before.
I've not played it, but I have heard of it. Yes.
Okay. So that is a fighting game, which I had an absolute blast with. And I think a big part of that is because it had accessibility, approachability settings where you could turn on like auto parry and stuff like that. But yeah, I think what I'm noticing is that I will try a game and, or I have tried a game early on in my gaming career hobby, and I just like put it down because I kind of tell myself I'm not going to be able to. This is too hard for me, essentially. And then like many years later, I will pick it back up. So I guess I'll use Celeste as an example. When I played Celeste for the first time, I just was like, I can't do this. I have to put it down because I was getting like rageful. And then, that must have been in 2021 or maybe 2022. And then I picked it up again, I want to say like 2 weeks ago, because I had just finished Love Eternal and I wanted to play another platformer. So I picked Celeste back up and I'm kind of like floating through it. I'm having a good time. So I think a big part of this for me is like giving myself time and building skills slowly over time, getting my bearings with video games, and kind of like a lot of it is put it down and come back to it, which I think is a totally valid and okay method.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I have played games where like I swear I'm going to love it and it's going to be my thing and I'm going to obsess over it and just get stuck to it and this is going to be it. And then I've just not had that desire, that itch to kind of keep going to it. But then I've come back to it, a few months or even years later and realized like, okay, no, that just wasn't the time then. And, now it is. And it doesn't mean the game's bad. It's just, it's like your appetite. You don't always like, you love things, but you don't always want to eat that same thing over and over again. So sometimes you just aren't feeling something in that moment, and it's okay. I think it's always worth giving something a second or maybe even a third chance at what it could be like. I did that famously with Mass Effect, which I do love that series. I played the first one and started it up anyway, and like the codex entries and like all this lore, they throw so much at you just in the first few minutes, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I just want to like shoot some stuff, like I'll read this stuff later. And then I was like, there's really not a lot of shooting right now, there's really a lot of talking and like setting this story up, like maybe this just isn't for me, maybe this isn't like the adventure like sci-fi thing I was hoping for. So I put it down and I was actually going to return it to the store, and before I did, I was like, actually, what, I'll start a new game and I'll give it one more shot and I'll see. But when I started to play it, even just a few days later, like I didn't have any other like plans for the afternoon or anything. So like, I was like, you know what, I'll read these codex entries. I'll read like the stuff, like the additional context and flavor text and all these things. Like, and like that then got me like really interested in like, oh man, this like, it's like building this world, like important piece at a time, like small morsels at a time and everything. And I was just instantly hooked and floored, and then was just rapidly obsessed from that point forward. And I could not put it down. I kept it. And, I think Mass Effect 2 like greatly improved on like the carrot on the stick formula of it all, and for the second one. And I just love that franchise for sure now. And it was almost one that I was just going to just discard and be done with. But, it's totally fine that if it's just not catching you in that moment, it doesn't mean that the game's bad. It doesn't mean that, you're bad for not liking it. It's just maybe not that time and space for you. So that's cool.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because as someone who's like, mostly just played newer games, with where I'm at in my gaming journey, I'm getting really curious about older titles. And so like I played through Banjo-Kazooie and had a great time, but I also like there are certain games that I feel I really want to play, but that I feel that I cannot play because they don't have things that more modern games have, like accessibility or approachability settings. And that's really interesting to me because I have like a collection of Mega Man games on my Switch, and I want to play a Mega Man game like so badly. Just like something about the vibes of Mega Man I really appreciate, and I think it has like some gorgeous art and incredible music, and I really want to play a Mega Man game. I've tried to play a Mega Man game so many times and I just cannot figure it out. So I don't know, I think this is just like a really interesting topic because I'm always wrestling between like, of course we should have options for accessibility and approachability, but like when should I be engaging with them and when should I not be,
Yeah. I mean, it's there's just a lot of games out there. So yeah, if there's something that's being putting itself up as a barrier because of X, Y, or Z reason, it's hard to try and fight over or overcome that when there are 3 other dozen games beside that you can also try and play. So not necessarily a problem, but it does make it challenging when you're trying to find that thing you want to enjoy. Okay, well, let's get into the icebreaker. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm so ready. Sorry, I already went right into the topic, but I'm ready for the icebreaker.
Okay. This is a two-part question. But it's not a complicated one, I don't think. You might think so. What is one of your favorite games? That's just question 1. I'm going to throw out there. It doesn't have to be your most favorite game, but name one of your favorite games, you think.
Keep Driving is one of my favorite games, no doubt.
Okay. Now your task is you have to give it a new title, but you can't use any of those words that are already in the title. So what would you call it if you had to give it a new name?
I would call it Road Trip Music Vibe.
Road Trip Music Vibe. Okay.
Is that okay? Is that
Hyperlight Drifter. Road Trip Music Vibe. That's what it just feels like. That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, in the indie space, I think you get a lot more freedom to like have this like funky titles, and that, if anything, that helps you kind of stand out. So I think that would work even from marketing reasons. I think that could work. So no, there you go. That's good. That works. Okay. Well, for the main episode topic that you selected, again, this is one of my newer questions, but this is kind of the kind of on the conversation of like game difficulty and how we play our games. But that's kind of exactly it. Like, how do you play your games? Like, do you consider like the easy mode or take on the hardest challenge? Like, what does like even difficulty mean to you in video games? But yeah, that's the question. That's the idea I'd kind of like to hear from you on. But how do you play your games?
Yeah, so I would say I am a competitive person, but I don't really have a lot of pride in the sense that I'm like, I need to finish this on the hardest level. My habit now is the second I boot up a game, does not matter what game it is, I go into the settings, and if there are any difficulty sliders or approachability or accessibility options, I just turn them all on because I feel like I have, it's just like easier and more exciting for me to engage with games in that way, like with where I'm at right now. But beyond that, I have a hard time. Like, for example, I have a really hard time with like vision stuff and reading. And like when things are really small, I have no idea what's going on. And so I'll go turn on like the the dyslexia friendly font right away. So I feel like I think it's always worth exploring what kinds of options games have now within their settings of approachability and accessibility. And also just like knowing where I'm at right now, I know if I'm playing like a game with combat and it's first person, like I know that I'm going to be really, really struggling to even just feel okay in a world of a game like that. So I will just go right in there and just turn all of those settings on right away. I do really appreciate when the option is available to then go adjust and turn them off and like kind of figure out what you want. And I'll definitely do that sometimes too. But I feel like I haven't talked to that many people who also approach games that way. So I don't know. I think that it's something that I really believe in and something that I think is cool and something that I think, I guess, makes newer gamers feel like they could have an opportunity to find their next favorite game, even if it's in a genre of something they don't feel comfortable with. I think that like Crypt Custodian, for example, is one of my favorite video games. It's a Metroidvania. It has combat, but it also has such an amazing accessibility, approachability menu. You can get really custom with it. Same with Cult of the Lamb. So these are some of my favorite games that like really get deep and niche into those kinds of settings, so you can basically have the kind of experience that you want. So, but that is how I tend to approach games. I go in there, I turn on all the settings. But I also think that there's something to be said for a challenge in games that is not just about reaction time or your ability to solve puzzles. I think of things like dating sims like Monster Prom and Dream Daddy, where you are having to use emotional intelligence and difficulty. Things can be difficult in that way too. And I think that that's not talked about enough, is like how games can be challenging in another way. So I don't know. I just think it's like a fascinating topic, and I'm still finding like what is the right answer for me, because I just finished a very hard video game that had no settings, accessibility or approachability settings. So, and that was an amazing feeling when I finished that. So I don't know. I'm hoping, Darren, maybe you can help me figure this out, because it's not something I get to talk about that often.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's anything that needs to be figured out. I've had like conversations with other guests and on other topics, and this has come up about like why we like video games and why people enjoy video games. Like, I enjoy video games more than I do like books or movies or anything. It's because like there's the interactive element of it all. And like, you know, you have some agency and you have some choice, you have some feeling like you have input into the entertainment that's happening. Like being involved, I think, helps you be more engaged or attached to or like a part of that experience than just sitting there and watching a movie. No, that's great still. Like watching a great movie and just witnessing a story and like, you know, seeing that all happen is, you know, can also be fantastic. But I think the reason I just like hold video games like on a slightly higher like status than that is just because of that level of interactivity and everything. And so if you have like that gatekeeping mindset about being like, you know, get good, and, you know, if you can't beat, you know, Elden Ring on the defaults, you know, whatever X, Y, or Z, like then you're not a gamer. Like that is like completely like not something I subscribe to at all. Like the ability to have these settings and to have like these things allowing gamers to like play them and enjoy them at any level, like is the goal. Like, you know, you want to be able to have the entertainment, you want to be able to have the agency to feel like you're involved at the level at which you're comfortable and capable and able to do so. And to say otherwise, that there is like a one bar you have to clear, you know, to make that, you know, eligible for you, like is, I think, just kind of ridiculous. Like, yeah, difficulty should be something that's fluid. For one, like I mentioned it on, I think it was the last episode. It was. We talked about. I've been playing games since the NES. Like that. That was a 2-button controller and a D-pad. So my little brain got used to it and the dexterity of pressing the 2 buttons and everything. Like that's fine. But I've been playing games as controllers evolved and added a few more buttons here and there, and added a few more analog sticks and a few more things. If you're playing games now, new to games, and are suddenly thrown a controller with 16 buttons and a touchpad surface and haptic responsive triggers and like all these other things, like that's not what I like first started playing games with. I started first playing games with simple inputs. So I feel like these settings are things that allow players to maybe reduce the requirement of that dexterity and of like the mental gymnastics needed on some of those control settings to be able to play it in that same mindset of like, cool, this is the these are the things and these are the mechanics that I can do and how I can input, and I can reduce some of the friction there or buff out some of the noise to allow me to experience it the same way that you might experience it with some of the settings on, and a standard controller. So I don't know. Those are some of my thoughts in that space anyway. Like I'm all about it. I think it's more power to please continue to create those spaces and create those settings so that more and more people can enjoy the games that we're playing.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think like when you don't have accessibility or approachability settings, you are like naturally limiting more, like you're like excluding people that could be experiencing your game. Like honestly, if Hollow Knight Silksong had any of those settings, I would definitely buy it. So I feel like, I don't know. I think it's really complicated because I guess sometimes I feel like, oh, but could I do it? And so like finishing Love Eternal just now that I finished it, I guess, at the end of March, that game took me about, 13 hours. The average time to beat is 6 hours, but it was definitely the hardest game that I've ever played. And I think if it had those settings, I would have just turned them on, but I don't know if I would feel the way that I feel now upon completing it. So I guess this is just something that keeps me up at night sometimes. I'm like, it's such a nuanced topic, I think. But I think overall, I feel that games are always better when they have these options, and I think like I'm just like trying to figure out what is my relationship with these settings sometimes, because I think sometimes I don't believe in myself that I can do hard things or that I can overcome challenges in games, or I'll just say like, oh, I'm a new gamer, so I don't need, like I'm going to need like to try it this specific way. So for me, it's kind of turned into like, I guess something I'm trying to balance and figure out, but I do really think that overall games are better for having for including more people basically.
Yeah. And there's the other side of it. If you're thinking about it as a developer, especially as like an indie developer, it is also that comes with like the time and money and like everything to actually implement those settings as well too. So if you're a small team, it may not be feasible for you to do that.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
But the thing is you make that decision like, hey, we could spend some time to do this, or we can make this just be like this is the experience. And, if it's too challenging, like we have to be aware that's going to happen. Like I don't want to say you're limiting your audience. Like the audience of people interested in video games is massive. And especially when you're in the indie space and on a small team, like, even if you like make it a quote unquote like hard game, there's still, likely plenty of people out there who can help you turn a profit and be successful and everything. But it's one of those things where if you do find that you have the time, effort, energy, resource, or ability to do so, if you create options for that allows more people in from a business and strategy standpoint, like that might be the thing that helps more people buy your game and enjoy it and everything. And it's, again, not a requirement. I think that there definitely is a space and there is a world, and I would continue to love to ensure that there are like quote unquote hard games, out there for people to play. Because to your point, exactly, like that feeling of accomplishment when you do overcome a hard challenge, like that you can't, you can't replace that, if you had something that like kind of helped guide you to that space, entirely, but it shouldn't come at the cost of being able to enjoy the game, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I think, difficulty is like, it's all about means, and it's all about like what can be afforded to be done from a developmental standpoint. But I think, having the option, if it's given to me, I would love for as many games as possible to allow those options, because you allow more people and more players, to have access and to potentially enjoy your project. So, it's interesting question.
On the other side of that, like there's a Metroidvania platformer that came out called Constance last year, at the end of last year. And I played the demo and really loved it. And I was like not going to pick it up because I didn't think that it had any difficulty settings, and then I found out recently that it does. So now I'm totally going to go buy that game. So yeah, I think I like what you pointed out too about like resources and development, because if you have those options and you're able to put that into your game, that's amazing. But I didn't really think about it how it's like, that obviously does take more time and more programming and craft, and it can make things be longer. Maybe not everybody has those resources. So I'm glad you made me think about that a little bit.
There are games games also that have dynamic difficulties, and like you find yourself getting harmed by enemies a lot and you're low on health a lot, like the game can dynamically then just drop some like health potion in the corner of this room that isn't normally there or something like that. Those are also ways to do that without maybe potentially feeling like you're like somebody's like knowingly putting on some bumpers into the game, or they don't want it to feel like that's the case. Like if your game is like paced and designed to allow for that dynamic difficulty and allow you to still, I'm going to make this one experience, but if you take a lot of extra damage, then maybe you'll get some more health. Or if you find yourself low on ammo, maybe a few more ammo will be around, or whatever, the crunchy cookie collectible you need to find, like maybe that crunchy cookie collectible will now be in a more visible space and have a glow to it or something like that. Whatever the game is, I mean, that's also something that's possible and can be done. But it's just it's an interesting thing. I just definitely think that I'm not like the gatekeepy mindset at all. I'm the far opposite of that. I think that, that players should be able to like be entertained by video games, and I would not want to remove that joy or remove that access from anybody just because there's a difficulty setting. It doesn't make me less of a gamer because I can play a hard game and then you can't or anything. Like if anything, I'd like more and more people to try them, so I have more and more people to talk about with them, and we have more of something to connect us and have us have a bond over than like limit somebody from doing that. So yeah. The other question that was kind of in this topic is like, what is a proud gaming achievement you've accomplished? And you talked about that with what was it, Love Eternal, you said?
Love Eternal, yeah.
Is there do you have other like moments that you were tested, or moments that you were kind of like pushed to overcome some difficulties? Or is it something like Celeste is, you're gonna quote unquote like climb that mountain again and maybe like see that through?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm going to be trying to play Elden Ring this year for the first time. I recently picked up GTA 5. So like I'm also in my experimenting with, AAA games for the first time phase as well. And I think like these games have just been something that I am excited to just experience, period. But they do require me to show up differently. And I do have to like focus pretty hard when I'm playing GTA 5. I was recently given a PS4 like from my neighbor who doesn't use it, so that's why I started playing that game. But I think some other, like Love Eternal, I've never experienced anything like that in my life. Finishing that game just felt like, I've just never had that experience before, and I think it's so special how we're all good at different things. Like I've had a lot of people reach out, not a lot of people, but a few people be like, oh, I can't believe you finished Love Eternal, like I had to put that down. Whereas like I feel that way about a game that they've finished, and so I think that that's the other really cool thing about games, is that we all like have our preferences and can do different things and are drawn to different things. But I also feel like there have been a lot of games like I mentioned On Guard in our last episode, I think, that have been challenging for me to complete. Honestly, anything that is first person or 3D is hard for me to complete at this point in my life. But I also played Kena Bridge of Spirits, which has a lot of combat and like I guess more traditional bosses. So games that have more traditional bosses. I don't even know what traditional bosses means, but Kena Bridge of Spirits and also Sorry We're Closed both have bosses that were really, really hard for me to beat. And then when I did, I was like just so excited. It's such a cool feeling. So for me, I guess if it's a podcast game, which both of them were, I do feel very motivated to finish them. But if I'm having like an actually bad time, I will not keep playing a game, because I just think there's too many games out there that are so wonderful, and I want to experience as many of them as possible, that I don't want to like waste my time being miserable, if that makes sense. But I do feel that I have overcome a lot of challenging games because of our podcast specifically, and the games that we choose to feature on it.
That's cool. Yeah, I wrote down Love Eternal from our last conversation, but I do want to look that up. Is that on, do you know what platforms that's on off the top of your head?
That's a great question. I know it's on Steam. I think it's on Switch as well. I know it's on Switch. But I would honestly, Darren, love to hear your thoughts on Love Eternal if you play it, because I just can't stop thinking about it. And I also think we don't often see the genres, in my experience anyway, of horror and precision platforming come together. So I think it's very special. And I also am a sucker for anything pixel art with the limited color palette. So it was kind of speaking my language already. But after experiencing that, then now I'm ready to play Celeste. I'm ready to have more of these experiences where the platforming feels impossible, but I believe in myself and I know it's something that I can do.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, no, Love Eternal it's cool. I pulled up screenshots of it and I wanted to see what it looked like visually, and that definitely seems like a game I could get into. And just also the gravity and mechanic you mentioned before, I want to see what that's like, and maybe it may pop up then in a future Pixels and Polygons issue, and coming soon to my website. Okay, cool. Well, then I guess maybe the last thing you kind of touched on that already. You're going to maybe take a swing at Elden Ring. Is there games that you maybe other games like that maybe you've been intimidated by their potential questionable difficulty that you maybe want to try in the future? So obviously you kind of already touched on that with Elden Ring, but are there any others off the top of your head that you have avoided because of them potentially being difficult but would like to get to?
I think, yes, but difficult in a different way. I think that I have, and I wouldn't even say the word avoided, but I haven't played things that I've really wanted to play, things like Disco Elysium or Citizen Sleeper. I think that sometimes I also have this really hard problem, which the podcast has really helped with, where when I really love something, I don't want to finish it because I don't want it to be over. This was such a problem for me for the first, I guess, 3 years that I was gaming a lot and playing indie games. I would do everything and then not do the last boss or the last thing until a year or two later, because I just didn't want to say goodbye. But I think that I would really like to try some of these titles like Disco Elysium and Citizen Sleeper that I've heard really good things about, but aren't that I'm not naturally drawn to in terms of genre and vibe. I also would love to try a very large RPG. I started playing Chrono Trigger last year, and I'd love to pick that back up again. I think I have a really strong distaste for things that are long. So I would like to maybe challenge myself and maybe try to play some RPGs or just longer games, period. And then Elden Ring will be its own thing. But yeah, I still am just really excited to try whatever is out there. And I'm equally excited to experience classics and things that, everybody played 15 or 20 years ago. So I think there's just so much to cover, and I'm excited about it.
That's cool. Yeah. The Elden Ring is not one I've ever, I've put that in a pile of I'm happy it exists. I'm happy it brings entertainment to people, but I will never be picking this up. I dabbled in, what was it, the first Demon Souls, when that was a PS3 game. Yeah, I dabbled in that way when it was first released, and I was oh, this is entertaining. It reminded me of a really janky PS2 game, but it looked better and everything. And but it was just kind of hard. And then I didn't play any of the Dark Souls games, but when Bloodborne came out, that was early on, and I really needed to justify buying a PlayStation 4. So it was well, this is the new thing. Everyone's playing this. I've got to try this. And I did get a lot farther in that than I thought, but there still was this level of balancing the entertainment with the anxiety that I was feeling. And so sometimes it's too difficult. I was just I don't know, this, I eventually had to just put it down. I never came back to it and everything. And I did give them one more shot with the Sekiro Shadows.
Oh yeah, Sekiro, yeah.
That one I did play, and I mean, probably 5-6 hours worth. So it wasn't I just fell right off of it. But again, I also hit a wall there where it was I was kind of stuck on a boss, and I enjoyed it. They have the solid controls, and if you can get your head around the mechanics and the timing and things like that, I can definitely see why they're entertaining. But it just sometimes the anxiety level is just kind of too high that it's outshining the entertainment value. And I'm I could be playing something else right now. Thank you for bringing joy to others. I'm going to uninstall you and go find something else. Yeah.
I really wonder if I'm going to have that experience playing them. And I'm wondering if you ever played Another Crab's Treasure.
No, but that looks really cool, and I remember seeing the trailer for that, and then when somebody described it as like a Souls-like, I was like, "What are you talking about? Like this game?" And then I was like looking at it, and I was like, "Oh, I mean, there seems to be some like parrying and like time windows and things like that," and I'm like, oh, "Okay, like that makes sense." But I think I could do that on. Like my head can wrap around that on a 2D space, and I think a lot easier than maybe in like the 3D space. And maybe it's also like the horror and dark imagery. Also, like I for some reason am not as into that as an adult as I was when I was like a teenager and everything. Like sometimes that by itself is enough anxiety that it's like, you know what? Like I don't need bright colors and everything, but bright colors do help sometimes, like the entertainment factor just be instantly appealing and everything. So but yeah, that game, the crab game looked fun, but I've not actually played that yet. Maybe in the future. There's too many games. I feel
like there's like another Crab's Treasure, Kena Bridge of Spirits, and a game called White Lavender that are like the Souls likes that I'm willing to play and enjoy. But for me, color is everything. Like I'm way more willing to pick that up than Elden Ring. So I completely understand what you're saying, and I think also when you I guess experiment within the genre of Souls likes and make them more, I guess, inviting in that way, that's more inviting to me specifically, and I'm way more excited and willing to pick it up. So yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I'm really wondering how I am going to feel about Elden Ring, but just gotta try it. I feel called to try it.
Yeah, give it a shot. Yeah, I think part of it too, like I like the mechanics of it all, because there's something like a rhythm to it. There's like a musical aspect of it that like, that's why I think I really always want to like feel like if I put just like enough effort or energy into it, like I could get really good at them, because I do have like a sense of rhythm, and I enjoy like music games and things like that. And so sometimes the timing is like just feeling the rhythm of like the fight and everything. So that's why I think when I play like 2D games or games that are like inspired by that type of gameplay in slightly different like packages, like it's a lot easier for me to adapt it to, because some of the limitations are kind of maybe like changed or altered in a way that it's more about a rhythm or a timing, and I can get behind that like really easily. So yeah, interesting though.
I love that.
But that's the question. That's the episode. That's the conversation. We did the thing. So thank you, Kate. If you have any other plugs or shares, I know we mentioned a few things at the last episode. If you it could be things of your own, but if you'd like to, I might make this more of a reoccurring thing, but recommendations as well. Like if you have things you want to recommend beyond your own things, anything you want to plug, promote, share, or highlight right now.
Well, I'll just say you can find me online on Instagram and Blue Sky at Cater Blossom, and on Twitch. And you can find No Small Games, the Indie Gaming Recap and Review podcast, at nosmallgames.com. Also on Instagram and Blue Sky. And I think I will plug a game that I want people to play, which a lot of people have played this game, but it's called Grunn, Grunn. And it is, I mentioned White Lavender earlier. It's the same developers. They're called Sock Pop Collective. They're working on their next game. These are indie devs that have such a specific vibe, amazing execution of like a little bit of like off creepy horror, but also lots of humor and just genius gameplay mechanics. If you have tried to play Outer Wilds, but you, like me, felt that it was too difficult, you should play Grunn. And I think that this is a video game that everybody needs to be playing. And keep your eyes on Sock Pop Collective, because like I said, their next game's coming up, and I know it's going to be great.
Yeah, that's fun. Emily talked about Grunn on one of our episodes as well too.
We love Grunn.
Yeah, I was like, it sounded super rad. And it convinced me that I need to like at least invest in like a Steam Deck or something, because I don't have like, I'm not the gaming PC type of person at all. Like I'm very much console person, but like it would make total sense to have a Steam Deck around for these like fun like indie things that like are not quite console ready, in ways like, because obviously there's still barriers to entry to like port them over to consoles, but like I'm missing so much by not having access to them. So that one sounded fun. Well, I'll have the links to everything, to your show, to everything there in the show notes below. But again, thank you, Kate, for having another conversation with me. I mentioned it before, but it was really fun chatting with you. You have an open invite to come back as well too. So you have my list of questions. So if there's something you want to talk about in the future, send me a message. I'd love to have you back on the show. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Darren.
All right, everyone, thank you for listening to the episode for another week. Come back next Friday. I also don't promote this enough. If you do support the Patreon, you can get episodes a week early. It's as little as $1, and you can suggest icebreaker questions as well, too. So please consider doing that. But otherwise, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and see you all next Friday.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I'm Nick McConnell, and you caught me reading the instruction booklet for Street Fighter II in preparation for my weekly stream Instruction Derby, where I take a look at the creative, fun, and sometimes bizarre lost art of video game manuals. Did you know that, according to the manual for Street Fighter II on the Super Nintendo, Ryu was born in 1964, making him 62 years young, canonically? Happy birthday, Ryu. You're looking great. Did you also know that, per the manual for Laser Invasion on the Nintendo, the UN enters a conclave in order to select a new commando? Or did you know that the dancing enemies in Super Castlevania are named Paula Abgul and Fred Askare? These important facts and many more are discovered every Wednesday at noon Pacific on Instruction Derby over at internet website twitch.tv/Nick McConnell. Part of the Soundstone Network.